Mr. Levy, what is also very important, perhaps very little thought has been given by various media organizations, is also about the condition of the hostages that have been taken by the Hamas, which includes not just Israelis but also foreign nationals. Perhaps you've had some time to ponder upon this and questions that are essentially being asked. Could you give us a sense of what's the current situation like? How exactly is the government going to take this forward? Because that is going to be another major concern. If at all you go ahead with a ground offensive, what really happens to those very hostages who are still inside Gaza?
First of all, I'm glad that you're shining a spotlight on the plight of the Israeli hostages inside the Gaza Strip and reminding the world that Hamas attacked not only Israelis, but foreign nationals. In fact, Hamas attacked, killed, abducted, injured nationals of 42 states around the world. That is why we say that this was a crime against humanity. This was an attack on humanity, and that Israel's response to Hamas, destroying Hamas, is in defense of humanity. And let me be clear. The hostages that Hamas has taken inside the Gaza Strip, many of them civilians, children, some babies as young as a few months old, some elderly over the age of 80, without their medication. We do not know what fate has happened to them, in what ways Hamas is abusing them, how it's torturing them. And we demand the immediate and unconditional return of our hostages. These 199 Israeli hostages inside the Gaza Strip are our children, our brothers, our sisters, our parents, our grandparents, brutally abducted from their beds by death squads who murdered everyone in sight and took them back into the Gaza Strip as human booty. We demand their immediate return, and Israel will do whatever it can to make sure that our people return as soon as possible to the loving embrace of their families.
Mr. Levy, as I understand, there is no question of having any negotiation with a terrorist group like the Hamas. But will there be any back-channel talks or at least some pressure to be built on the Hamas through the Palestinian Authority? Is Israel open to talks with Palestine at this point in time, hoping there would be a safe return of those hostages? I'm asking you this question because there would be many family members who are equally worried today. If at all Israel goes ahead with a ground offensive, what really happens to the future of those hostages? So hence I'm asking you, is Israel open to talks with the Palestinian Authority?
First of all, the Palestinian Authority has no direct involvement with this. We're talking about hostages that have been abducted by Hamas and by Islamic Jihad, two proxies of the brutal regime in Iran. Hamas and Islamic Jihad that are holding our people hostage inside the Gaza Strip, and we will do whatever we can in order to bring them home safely from captivity in the hands of these two genocidal terror organizations. And our expectations from the world, not only in making this demand that Hamas return our captives, is also that it treat Hamas like ISIS. And just as no country in the world would have diplomatic relations with ISIS, we expect no country in the world to have diplomatic relations with Hamas, no country in the world to give it shelter, to give it safe harbor. And we expect the international community to act forcefully to impose sanctions on whichever country is giving harbor to the new ISIS, to Hamas, the brutal terror organization that perpetrated the 7th of October massacre, butchering, beheading, burning whole families alive, now holding 199 vulnerable Israelis for the 10th day inside the Gaza Strip. We want them back, and we expect the world to apply all necessary pressure on Hamas, on its backers, to make sure that we have our children, our friends, our families, our grandparents back home safe and sound.
Mr. Levy, I would also like to touch upon other aspects with regards to whether at all are you right now looking at a two-front war, giving the fact that Hezbollah too has been active. There have been attempts that have been made by the Hezbollah from the northern border. Could you give us a sense of what's really happening? How exactly are you tackling the threat emanating from Hezbollah at this point in time?
Hezbollah has been escalating its attacks on Israel on the northern border, and I want to make one thing clear. Israel does not want war with Hezbollah in the north, just as we didn't want this war that we have been dragged into with Hamas in the south. But if Israel is forced to fight on two fronts, both against Hamas in the south and Hezbollah in the north, we will fight on both fronts, and we will win. We are ready to do so. And if Hezbollah drags Israel into a full-scale war, the state of Israel will hold the Lebanese state responsible with all attendant consequences. It's in that context that we are especially grateful to the United States for sending 2 aircraft carriers into the eastern Mediterranean in order to send a very clear message to Iran and to Hezbollah. I can only quote the words of our good friend President Biden in his very moving speech last week. He said to anyone thinking of messing with Israel at this time, our message can be summarized in one word: don't.